Well, Fight Fan, I'm glad you like it, man. And let me make those two videos that I made yesterday based on your comments into one. So anyone who says, your spirituality isn't real, it was coincidence you met Goosen's son at SSU, and, Goosen's gopher was in prison with your father, and you went to your first fight with Rafael versus De La Hoya. I'll tell you this. So fast forward 10, 15, 10 years, whatever it was. I don't even know if it was 10 because time moved so fast back then. I'm in prison. And who am I in prison with? Michael Nunn. Now, guys, you guys got to understand how good a fighter Michael Nunn was. I would meet Chris Bird later at a MMA gym in my life, and we talked about Michael Nunn. And Chris Bird fought. He was a heavyweight champion of the world, but he fought his amateur career at middleweight. He moved to heavyweight for the money because that's where it is in boxing. But he said Michael Nunn was literally the best boxer that he had ever known. And Michael Nunn had a war with James Toney in Iowa, in his home state. And he had lost that fight. And what happened to Michael Nunn? What is the fall of this unbelievable champion? Guys who were saying he was better than Sugar Ray Leonard and everything else. It was that allure of the street life that Roberto Duran had. I remember my conversation with Michael Nunn, one of them, in prison, and I asked him about one of his opponents, Graciano, in Germany. And he said that Graciano was robbing armored cars over there and stuff like that. There was something about Michael Nunn that held the allure of the street. And that's true for a lot of people, right? And it's very sad, especially someone as talented as Michael Nunn, right? He could have kept on the straight and narrow and had a career like Oscar De La Hoya, been retired wealthy and whatnot. As it is, he got a 25-year prison sentence. I remember his judge. I think it was a woman named Reed, if I remember correctly. But in Iowa, there were only 2 federal judges, and they used to give kids more time than you can imagine in prison. The federal sentencing guidelines were all a lie. They weren't there to make things equitable. They were there to stretch people out depending on how conservative your state was. And Iowa was as conservative as it could be. So I believe that God put the Goosens in my life and then later put Michael Nunn in my life. It's those paths. He's showing you quite literally the choices you made, that you zigged when you should have zagged, and what you could have done with your life and you didn't. But once you start being aware of those things that he's putting in your life, you can make the right decisions when he's giving you opportunities to do certain things. So Michael Nunn, a warning for all those fighters of the street. One of the best boxers of his generation, and he ruined his life over what? What? Over street life, over partying, over that Roberto Duran stuff we talked about. Guys, keep on the straight and narrow, train, pray, and live a good life. And read my book, Warrior of the Life.